that you'd like all her colleagues to
We'll
hear.
convene as the Board of County Commissioners in our policy sessions this afternoon. I'm going to start off this meeting by making a couple of announcements based on recent events that have been brought to my attention. Tomorrow's inauguration speeches for newly elected Commissioner, myself, and Mark Schul, and continuing Commissioner Martha Schrader will be postponed due to some impending acts of violence that may be coming our way that have been credible. So we've decided not to do that. Starting this Thursday and all next week, the meetings like this and our business meeting will go back to Zoom for the same reason. And I think it's prudent that our staff stay home next week, stay home on Thursday, use Zoom where possible. Anybody who wants to come into the office can certainly do so on their own accord to get whatever necessary to conduct business. There's evidently been some credible threats across Oregon. And I just think, you know what, we can conduct our business through Zoom, and we can be effective, and we can continue on, and we'll let this episode blow over, and then we can resume our regular business meeting on a hybrid version of what we have today possibly, when we all think the time is right, when people are comfortable to resume their duties in here without threats. And I'm very sorry to say that we're living in a time that we have to do that, but that's the way it is. And I just think it's a prudent thing to do right now. And I ask you all for your support. And as we move forward in these very difficult, trying times, quite possibly for the next couple of weeks. So with that in mind, Gary, would you like to tee it up?
Thank you. And Commissioner Chair, if I may, so that would be starting this Thursday, January 14th, and then next week.
Yes.
I'm sorry, wait, just today. Yes, January 14th, and then next week, January 19th and 21st, the meetings
Yes.
will all be remote only.
Yes, and so staff will notify all county staff of that. And we'll just deal with it, you know, one day at a time or 1 hour at a time, whatever is what we need to do. And we'll just study the course and continue to represent our citizens the best we can. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Chair. We'll get the notice out to our staff and to the community as well. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, are you ready for the first policy session today?
I am ready.
Okay, the first policy session for today is new Circuit Courthouse Project Update. The presenter is Gary Barth, Courthouse Project Manager. He is calling in remotely on Zoom. I will kick this off, though, with some brief introductions and a statement, and then Gary will give a brief update, and then we have the majority of the time for the board to ask questions and give feedback on the courthouse project. Today is an informational session. There's no decision that needs to be made today, but we want to update you on the very latest of our work for a new county courthouse facility. So first, I'd like to introduce several people in the room today who are members of the courthouse leadership team. They are Presiding Judge of the Circuit Court, the Honorable Kathy Steele, who's here in the audience. District Attorney John Wentworth, the Honorable as well. The Honorable Sheriff Angie Brandenburg is here as well. They are all members of the courthouse leadership team, as is Commissioner Sonia Fisher, who is on the Zoom meeting today. And Gary Barth, as I mentioned, is our project manager. So, commissioners, as you know, the county has been discussing the needs for a new county courthouse. Are you ready for 22 years? 22 years from 1998, when the new courthouse facility was added to the Red Soils Campus Master Plan, which the Board of County Commissioners in 1998 adopted. And ever since then, there has been the need for a new county courthouse facility. Our current county courthouse, as you know, was built almost or over 90 years ago, at a time when Clackamas County had much less residents and much less needs for justice. Those needs and our residents have expanded over time, and our building has not. The current courthouse is functionally obsolete and seismically unsound, and is really not able to be retrofitted or remodeled to meet the needs of what our justice system demands. So our county has been discussing the need for a new county courthouse over the many years, as I mentioned, and most recently, it is a part of the Board of County Commissioners' strategic plan. It is one of 12 priorities the board has identified to secure a new county courthouse facility. The recent times, our Oregon State Legislature has created a state fund to help cover up to 50% of the costs of designing and building new county courthouses statewide. This is a more recent development in the last 6 to 7 years, and Clackamas County is currently at the top of the list of next in line of being ready to be supported for new county courthouse construction funds. This has been on our legislative agenda as well, which you'll also discuss as the next policy session, approving your state and federal legislative agendas. So the state of Oregon has been willing to pay up to 50% of the costs of a new courthouse facility. Of course, the county is then responsible for the other 50%. As you all may know, county courthouses, the facility themselves, are the responsibility of county government. It is a required function of county government. However, the judges and the employees are state employees, as state court employees. But it is a mandated service of county governments that they are required to, at some point, build and then maintain a county courthouse facility. So I have always joked that if or when the current county courthouse is uninhabitable due to whatever the circumstance may be, if that were to happen today, then commissioners, you and I would be responsible for finding an immediate replacement. And I joke we'd put trailers out in the circle of honor and put staff in the trailers and then commandeer these conference rooms to be courthouses. I joke because I hope that will never have to happen, because we'll plan ahead and have the needed facilities. The prior Board of County Commissioners did agree to research the public-private partnership, or P3 model, as a potential funding mechanism for a new county courthouse facility. No decisions have been made, and today we'll update you on how that work is progressing, but we will bring the results of that analysis to you in the next month or two for then you to make a decision of which direction you would like to go forward on a county courthouse facility. At this point, I'll pause and ask if Judge Steele would like to make a few brief comments about your work on the courthouse, as you have been leading this effort for many years from your vantage point. So Judge Steele, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Gary. Please let me know I'm wearing my mask, which I wear in a courtroom, and if you can't understand something I say, let me know. Folks, I thought it was interesting when I became presiding judge a couple of years ago that I took on this particular role as a state representative with the county in our search for replacement of the county courthouse. You know, when the building I'm in was built in '36, we had 50,000 people in Clackamas County. We now have, over 415,000, and we're still in the same building. We have 11 courtrooms carved out of the space that was built in '36, and we have no more room. Given the amount of people in our county, we should have at least minimum 14 judges, and we don't. And that affects how we can conduct business on behalf of the Clackamas County citizens. In 1937, when the courthouse was taken over, or people moved in, basically every county department had their office there. The sheriffs, the district attorneys, the county clerk, the juvenile department, and the jail was all in there, along with several courtrooms. But as our population has expanded, the court rooms themselves and that staff has taken over the space, and then the other county departments moved out. The courthouse serves hundreds and sometimes thousands of people on any given day. In January of last year, we had an average of 619 people come into the courthouse per day. Total was over 14,000 for the month. This last December, we had, now because of COVID, where we're doing remote stuff, the numbers are 233 per day. So despite a pandemic, we've got several hundred people in there every day, and we still don't have room to conduct our business. There are numerous reasons, and Gary expounded on some of them, and you've heard them before, and if you've been to the courthouse, you know what I'm talking about. But we need safety for the folks that come into the building and the people that work there, and the property that, to properly serve the citizens that are there in the building. First and foremost, again, it's obsolete, it's unsafe. You will hear a lot about seismic concerns. As I did want to reinvent the wheel when I was going to be given the opportunity to speak here today, but I went back through my notebook of things I've acquired in the last couple of years, and I found this earthquake hazard map, which was prepared by the city of Oregon City as part of the record in determining whether or not we need a new courthouse or where we would put it. And it fascinates me that the block that the courthouse sits on is a little red spot down here in downtown Oregon City of being the highest risk of an earthquake. And we worry about that because we've been told that there is no proof that we are attached to bedrock. We've been told that the folks that did many, many years ago the soil studies of the soil underneath concluded that it would liquefy in a good shake, and then it's going to go down and clearly going into the river, folks. When I started practicing in Clackamas County back in '81, the space in between the courthouse itself and the embankment had room for 6, maybe 8 deputy cars, sheriff deputy cars parked along there, and now they have 1. And they keep falling off. And we are less than a yard from the edge of one corner of the courthouse to the 100-foot drop-off into the river. So what are you going to do if it gets down to nothing? And OSHA says, oh, you can't be in the building, all right? I mean, it has gone, I know, at least 10 feet, if not more, since I've started practicing. And I don't know what's going to happen if we can't get those people out of there as soon as possible. And so that's why we are very concerned. It's also unsafe because of the inside of the building. Even if it were on bedrock underneath, the inside of the building is not safe. The records division in the basement is limited in the number of people they can have there because they don't have air enough for more than a handful to be in there at any one time. You've seen our hallways. Imagine how it looks when things get really busy, which is all the time, generally. It is, without COVID, it is very, very busy. And even with COVID, we got an OSHA complaint a month or two ago because there were too many people in the hallway and we didn't clean them out, which we do if we know about it, soon enough. The central stairwell is a fire flue. If there were a fire that started in the main floor, you just don't design buildings like that anymore. So there are design issues that can keep us safe that we don't have right now. It's so old that we can't retrofit it to operate it. When you come there, you will see wires on the floor, you see wires on the ceiling and on the walls, because those are things that we can't fix. And you're spending a lot of money on maintenance on this out of date and outdated building. And we need something that will make sense for where you're putting taxpayer dollars. Frankly, I'm very intrigued by the P3 financing program because it builds in the maintenance of the building to the consortium that builds the building in the first place for the length of the contract. That was especially important to me when I found out that Multnomah County's new courthouse had several courtrooms that were closed earlier this week. And that's important to me because they had 2 floors of courtrooms they couldn't use. If we build our new courthouse with a P3, then one, the consortium has to fix it. Whatever was wrong with those fire, retardant hoses or whatever it was that went out, they'd have to fix it. But secondarily, we would build into our contract with them such that if we can't use a space because of a maintenance problem, we can reduce our payment to the consortium by that amount, whatever that value would be. And that has a value to us. And that's part of the P3 program, and you need to explore that further in your considerations of how to proceed. You know,
We're almost out of time, Kathy.
okay, I'll just say one more thing. 1960, the Board of County Commissioners had a study done on whether we needed a new courthouse.
Did you say 1960, 60?
6-0.
Thank you, ma'am.
And at the time, the recommendation was, you need a new courthouse. All right? The replacement is a wise investment. Replacement is a priority, and I would argue to you that replacement is a necessity. And I would urge you to continue to make this a priority.
Judge Steele, I want to thank you for your impassioned talk today. You and I have talked before about this, and I don't disagree with you on many levels, but we are prepared to discuss this further.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Judge Steele. So Gary Barth, the project manager, is on Zoom. I'm sorry, Gary, we cut into your time, so I'm going to ask you to really trim your update, Gary, and instead let the board ask questions that you can help answer. So Gary Barth, 5 minutes, my friend. Please go ahead.
I think in the interest of the board, I'm going to keep it less than 5 minutes because I really want the board and the leadership team to have time to discuss. So very briefly, your staff report does outline the efforts underway. The key part there is the deliverables that we are currently working on. We have a technical advisory team that is working on the courthouse project. 4 discipline areas: legal and procurement, financial and transactional, design and engineering, and public engagement and legislative affairs. We're making great progress on all 4 of those. We are being joined by subject matter experts with P3 experience in legal, finance, and design. We're about 40% of the way through that project plan. We kicked that off in early November. We're well on the way in working on the financing plan and the budget impact with our county finance department. We're also refining the scope of the project, had meetings with all of the occupants and refining all of the needs of the building so we can get an accurate and revised cost estimate that's commensurate with that budget and financing plan. So that's an iterative process that we're undertaking. And then, and both of those are advancing very nicely. The final piece is the legal. One of the deliverables to you are targeted for May, in which case you will have a financing plan presented to you, a refined scope of the facility, as well as a draft project agreement with the private developer, the RFQ for us to gauge interest from the marketplace of those interested in bidding on this project, and then a draft request for proposal that would be issued to a shortlisted group responding to that RFQ. So we are pulling together a complete package for board review to bring back to you. Target is early May. We need to set some timelines that coincide with the state legislative calendar and the budget calendar for their state match. So that is one of our key driving milestone dates that we're working in concert with Public and Governmental Affairs. And I think they follow along behind me on this with the legislative agenda. So great progress. I think the key point to leave you with today is an extensive amount of work has been done, a lot of analytics. I attached a lot of attachments that I'm not going to go over today, but I wanted to provide to the board. The incumbents have seen some of this work before, much of this work. And Chair Smith, you're seeing some of this for the first time, as well as Commissioner Schull. So a lot of background material for you to read at your leisure, but to give you assurances that this is a very comprehensive effort underway. But the most important consideration is you're not making any decisions on this project until we bring you back a well-informed package that has all the critical elements that you need to make an informed decision. And so I think with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Gary.
Yes, so with that, Commissioners, I think you would all agree there is a need for a new facility. The question is, what does that look like and how to pay for it, for the 50% we're required to pay for. So with that, Chair Smith, I turn it back to you to make any comments and then lead discussion, please.
Do we have any other people who want to testify on behalf of the courthouse? I see John Wentworth is here, our newly elected district attorney.
Thank you, Chair. I did not intend to make a comment,
Oh.
but since you're inviting, I'll simply say this. The needs of the public are not being served, as the judge shared with you. We just have simply too few judges. I, of course, look at this from the standpoint of a criminal justice system that relies on swift justice for those who offend and swift justice for victims of crime. We don't achieve that when we have to kick cases so far down the road because we simply don't have the judicial staff. We need to get that work done. So that's where I'm coming from this. I think we're in agreement of the necessity. I agree with Mr. Schmidt that how we get there is part of this discussion, but the need for the courthouse is unassailable. We absolutely need a new facility. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. I see our newly elected sheriff is in town. I love saying there's a new sheriff in town.
Thank you for the invitation today. I also was not prepared to make comments, but I can tell you from personal experience, working down at the courthouse as a deputy, as a sergeant, as a commander of civil, overseeing courthouse security operations, that we definitely need a new courthouse. Our needs are not being met with our current courthouse. How we get there is a concern to me, that we're fiscally responsible, of course, for our citizens. And then two is I'd be amiss not to use this opportunity to say we need a new jail. I know I've had conversations with Gary and some of you as well. So to not take our eye off that as well. The jail was built in 1958, 1959, and it does not serve our community as well. So just wanted to put that out there as well, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff Brandenburg. Well, Gary, is it my turn?
Yes.
Well, folks, I've had some very different opinions regarding our courthouse. I understand the need deeply. I've been there a lot. I've conducted business there. I have had the very distinct pleasure of sitting in on Judge Steele Court and in her chambers, and I have to say I was duly impressed. When I grow up, I want to be like you someday. I've been called for jury duty, and I do understand the needs. However, my path to get there may be different than the one that's currently presented. As you know, I am quite a prolific writer. I do have a white paper on what to do about a courthouse. It's on my website. It's been there since way before March. And it does not include building a brand-new structure at a huge hundreds of millions of dollars of debt. Instead, I came up with this idea, and I ran it past the building community in Clackamas County. And it seemed to have merit. And that idea has now morphed into a different idea that Administrator Gary Schmidt and I have been considering. In light of COVID and people returning to work or not, and the current use or non-use of all county buildings, we have a marvelous, wonderful building sitting right next door to us, across the courtyard. And in fact, that we have also found out from the state of Oregon that the 50% monies can be used for a remodel project. And the value of that courthouse, of the building next door, probably would appraise out and be our match. And that's been part of the problem with this situation, is our county government finding credible dollars and a match to match the state funds. In light of the current economic situation in Clackamas County, I am not willing to put out a bond to vote to build for a new courthouse. However, I think we can get there by looking at the situation differently. I think we can think we can get to 14 courtrooms. I think we can house the district attorney's office by remodeling and retrofitting a current building next door. And if the square footage isn't quite there, then we'll make accommodations for the square footage. That is a plan that I'm willing to look at. And with that in mind, I have approved our legislative agenda to continue on efforts to secure a 50% match. We have time between now and when the legislature makes a final decision on the allocation, because they need to sell bonds. That probably won't happen until after sine die, which is in June. I like the P3 model. I think that is wonderful. You know, everybody in their house should have something like that. And in light of what happened to poor Multnomah County, I was talking with my colleague Deb Kafori on a Zoom call yesterday, and she says, guess what I'm dealing with? We have 7 floors that flooded. And I just really felt horrid for her. So, colleagues and everybody in the room, as we move forward, I would implore you to look at this situation. I think we can get there. And as you know, as far as the public is concerned, any polling that was done, and I dropped a very scientific countywide poll last year, and the support for a courthouse is awful. You might have 25% people support a new courthouse. And those are the people whom I work with and whom I work for. And those are the people whom I have to answer for. And if I was able to give my speech yesterday in the inauguration, you would have heard from me about the budget and my philosophy regarding the budget, and that is for the next year, there's no new spending and no new taxes until we figure out what the COVID situation is going to be, whether our businesses can reopen and pay property taxes. While our property tax revenue was fairly strong this year, which surprised me, I will be shocked if it's the same next year. We just don't know what lays for the future. So while there's a lot of talk to be done on this, there's a lot of negotiation, there's a lot of give and take. I think we can get there. I think we can satisfy most of the people in the room. The courthouse is a very, very expensive venue. Very expensive venue. And at this point, as chair, I cannot go into hundreds of millions of dollars expenditure when I know there are other public safety needs that are just as great and just as critical, like our jail. And we quite possibly, if we do the courthouse this way, it will leave room in our budgets on the payment side to look at other public safety needs in the county, which in turn would help our judges and our district attorneys for the future. Gary.
Thank you, Chair. I will say I'm getting feedback from those on the Zoom from our other commissioners that there's a very, very poor sound connection. So everything we're saying in this room is not being heard online. It cuts in and out. Our staff's working on it. They're doing their best. But I will acknowledge that. We're working on it, everyone, to have better connections as we speak. So with that, Chair, if there's any other commissioners that would like to comment?
Were the other commissioners, Martha's in the queue right now, but real quick, Martha, were the other commissioners able to hear what I just said?
From their text, it was cutting in and out, so they heard.
Well, okay. Well, we
parts,
can
but not all.
present this in a policy session and what this is, but we can have more deep discussion on this because this is a new idea I'm throwing out. And it bears a lot of talk. Martha.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Smith. I'm looking at the master plan here, and I was here 2004, 2006, 2008, and what halted the courthouse at that time was when we went into the 2008 recession.
Martha, I couldn't, can you talk in?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
better.
Because of the 2008 recession, so it was put on hold at that time. And the reason why the Legislative Assembly, and you're a legislator, have been a legislator like I have, did the 2013 piece of creating the dollars was because this was not just an issue for Clackamas County, it was actually an issue, pretty significant issue across the state of Oregon. But I want to give you some institutional memory. One of the reasons that we consolidated up here on the Red Soils campus is that we were renting other buildings when I first came on board throughout the entire county. And again, what we were doing was renting. We had significant maintenance issues spread all over the county. And not only the maintenance, we found out that we were spending out so much money on rent that actually, when we did the financial analysis, it appeared that building buildings here on the campus and consolidation in the long term, actually would save us money. So I would urge us not to throw out this particular model at this time. I am certainly willing as a colleague to really take a closer look at some of your ideas. But I do want to say that the institutional memory, from my perspective, that this has been something that we've been looking at from a very, very, very long time. I think that the P3 model seems to be a good opportunity. I do know when you look up information at the National Associations of Counties website that there are other entities throughout the United States who have used, other counties that have used this model in order to do their due diligence in order to get the infrastructure they need. So I know that we may have a difference of opinion. I share your deep concern about what we're facing now because of COVID and because of our businesses not being open. I really understand the timing of this as well. That resonates to me because I tend to be fiscally, I don't want to get us into debt. But before you make a final decision, let's take a close look at it and make sure that, that this isn't actually a viable option. I honestly think it is a viable option. And my concern about the courthouse is, and I'm going to say this as a mother who has a daughter who is I've said this before to folks, who is a prosecutor in the Massachusetts system, that I would not want her in that building. I think it's an absolute death trap at this point. And I'm not saying that lightly, and I'm not saying it to be inflammatory. I really think it's a dangerous building. So if we decide to rent, I would strongly suggest we don't throw this plan out, because I think the long-term fiscal savings, as played out in previous years in this county, is something we also need to look at and consider. And I know it's a tough sell to the public. If anybody knows it's a tough sell to the public, it's me. So thank you for that.
And Martha, thank you for your institutional memory on this. I always enjoy you putting things in perspective in the unique way you do.
Oh, I know way too much.
Commissioner Savas has his hand
Commissioner
up.
Savas, you're up.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, I'm going to use some analogies, folks, and I know we don't have a lot of time. And the first analogy I want to use is like when I want to work on one of my old classic cars, I know I got to spend practically half of the weekend moving things around, shuffling things around, just so I can roll the car out of the garage. And then I get the car out of the garage, and then I want to start working on it. And hopefully there's enough time left in the day to get it done. So my analogy here today is that seems like we've sometimes got a peek at the car, never really got out of the garage, and we really certainly haven't got the hood up and talked about all the different ways we can approach this project, in my opinion. We just seem to just barely broach it, and we run out of time. With that said, I want to just make sure that Chair Smith and others know that I'm open to all different ideas. I'm compelled by the nature, my history compelled is to find most efficient way, most cost-effective way of building infrastructure, replacing infrastructure, and providing those services to our citizens, whether I was wearing a county commissioner hat at the time or a water district hat. We're building a water treatment plant, or we're rebuilding a wastewater facility. These projects have cost as much or more than the courthouse, okay, in past, if you look at it in today's dollars. The millions, and I'm gonna make a big point here, the millions and tens of millions of dollars wasted by the cost of money, by kicking the can down the road, has cost the citizens of this county in so many different ways, so much money. It's a shame. We are now just completing our digester project, a project that was described, needed, suggested, that only would have cost us $2 to $4 million in the 90s. We just got done with that project. How much did it cost? Over $40 million. $50 million. It could have cost us a fraction of that. And that goes, I can tell this story over and over and over, examples in this very county where the same kind of thing is held. By kicking the can, we have cost our county, our citizens money, and we're not meeting the needs that we need to. That could be in highway infrastructure, whatever it may be. Again, example after example. So what I'm hoping is that while I am not wedded to any one particular idea, other than, well, I want to look at everything. I want to find the best way we can do this, the most affordable way we can do this. The need is there. I will tell you that I can see and tell the need is there. Martha's history, I love that. Thank you, Martha. Great job. I remember my first county commissioner meeting in 1997. I went up to the old commissioner building by the railroad tracks in downtown Oregon City. And had we not did we did today, we'd still be there. And that's a scary thought. That's a real scary thought. So we got to realize where we've been, where we come from, and how much our population's grown. And I really think, I kind of said it earlier this week when I talked about our retreat. If we have a retreat, let's do it seriously and take the time that it takes to do the work. This is a big project. I think there's a lot of ideas. I think we can knock them out one by one, say good, bad, and start making some progress. You can build the project 5 different ways and use a P3 model. You can build the project another few different ways using a different model. There's so many different options. At the end of the day, we need to find a way that financially is the most feasible way to get this done on behalf of our citizens and meet the needs. Other than that, if we don't, public safety will suffer. The number one concern in this county today, probably more than ever around the country today, is public safety and the safety on behalf of our citizens. That's what our courthouse is about. That's what the jail is about. That's what our law enforcement's about. Our DA's office, everyone in the room today, and then some. And I convened a meeting here about a year ago or so. I asked all of our public safety leaders to talk about what if we were to right size our public safety system. And I don't mean just people, but our facilities, the organizations. We're going to right size and have the right size public safety system to meet our needs as a growing county. What would that look like? And I know we just broached that topic, but I think we need to have that topic and think about that in a long-term way and how we get the job done, because public safety is the first thing on our citizens' minds, and trying to do the work that we need to do in an undersized courthouse in a dangerous location of an outdated building is not the way to get it done. Thank you.
One of the points that I forgot to make in this, the building next door is a very nice building. And yes, it can be retrofitted. We would realize the goal of a new courthouse much sooner with that building than we would construction of a new. The construction of the new building would really take years. And Judge Steele, it's not lost on me, the safety of yourself and all the employees at the courthouse. I don't like going into the building. The fact that you're working there is heroic, but we have no other choice. So expediency is a factor for me in seeing the fruition of this project. Gary?
We're going to adjust the calendar for the rest of the meetings. You don't have to make any decisions today. My recommendation is allow staff to finish their P3 analysis. We're very close. And in a parallel path, we'll do the staff work on a rental possibility of renting another facility and the retrofitting of a current county building, and bring all of that data back to the board so that you can make an informed choice from all of those options. Commissioner Savas is right. We can give you much more time. Although you've had probably, in my quick estimation, probably 8 hours worth of discussions over the last 2 years on this, but we haven't done it all at once. So we can have a longer session once we have all that data collected for you to have a really good conversation about it.
Yes,
that'd
and
be
the
my
full board needs to discuss this with our partners in the room today, and there's other partners out there. I am not willing, to go out on a limb by myself on this. I think it's important and it's prudent on us to consider all fiscally responsible options on this. So Gary, are we, Martha, excuse me.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention that the other piece of information, if I recall, there was over $2 million worth of renovation done to the current building back in the day as well. And again, that was a stopgap measure. So I do think we have to move forward with something. I think that, a building that we definitely have longevity, to be mindful that the cost of maintenance in older buildings, which is the route we took before, in the long term can be extremely expensive. So I'm more than willing to look at other options. I'm a reasonable person, I understand that, as long as we at least just give this a chance and get the time to really look it through, and let staff at least follow this one option.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
that. Thank you. Gary, we finished with this?
Anyone else online, Christina?
No other hands are raised.
Judge Steele, DA Wentworth, Sheriff Brandenburg, thank you kindly for your participation today. And
So-
as always, my line is always open for discussion. Thank you.
So more to come. Thank you all very much. All right, so we are going to make some adjustments to the meeting schedule today because Chair Smith needs to depart earlier today. So we are going to go forward with the legislative agenda approval next, and the Jennings Lodge Camp MOA IGA, and we're going to reschedule the approval of home loan and the Milwaukee Bay project update to next week. So at that, we'll have the next policy session, approval of 2020 state and federal legislative agendas. We have Sue Hildick, Director of Public and Government Affairs, along with Trent Wilson and Chris Lyons. As efficiently as you can, please go through your presentation.
Thank you, Gary. Commissioners, Sue Hildick, Director of Public and Government Affairs, with Chris Lyons and Trent Wilson. It's that time again. The Oregon Legislature is soon to convene, and Congress has already convened, and we have both a state and federal agenda of county priorities we're pursuing. Just a word about the process. Public and Government Affairs leads the process of putting these agendas together by checking with each department, hearing their priorities, brainstorming with them, consulting with them, trying to identify pots of funding for projects and priorities that we have. We get input from the BCC. We meet with each of the commissioners to do that, and then we bring it here at this time of year for adoption. The key message from us is alignment. We try very hard to make sure that the BCC strategic plan is represented in our priorities and that we can be aligned in our advocacy at all levels. In terms of both processes, the federal process is already underway, and that session runs January 3rd to January 3rd, 23. As you know, we have Democratic control of the House and Senate. We'll be having the commissioners meet with the congressional delegation in February virtually to express our priorities and to be of service to them. The state legislature begins January 19th, adjourns June 27th. We have Democratic supermajorities in both the House and Senate. We have already had 1,800 bills introduced. We expect to see about 3,000 bills. And at this point, most of the business is going to be conducted virtually. Virtual hearings, in-person in-person voting, but the Capitol is open only to authorized personnel while Marion County remains in extreme high or moderate risk. I think you know that we have a Clackamas Caucus, which was established in 2018. It represents 16 members who represent Clackamas, bicameral and bipartisan. Mission is to collective commitment to collaboration intended to support and achieve success on our chosen specific legislative priorities that help the needs of Clackamas County. The 2021 co-chairs are Reps Mark Meek and Rick Lewis. You'll see in the agendas really two buckets. First, our legislative initiatives and priorities, which are specific and concrete issues, and then our legislative principles, which reflect what the county stands for at a higher level and really allow us to have a little more flexibility as bills are introduced and we can run them against those principles to decide where we land. Okay, with that said, we're going to go state or federal?
I'll go then Trent.
Okay.
Hi, Commissioners.
All right, I really need you to cut it short.
Okay.
So, assume the board's read the packets, so the highlights, please.
Great. Hello, Commissioners. Chris Lyons, PGA. I'll cover the priorities of both agendas, and then Trent will take over with principles. So you'll see in the packet under the state agenda, we have a couple initiatives, the courthouse funding and 205 funding. These have been on the agenda for many years now, and we are making significant progress on both of those, which come straight from the board's strategic plan. Under the priorities, we have a number of other high priority issues, including COVID-19 pandemic, wildfires and the prevention of future wildfires, the Willamette Falls locks, the Sunrise Gateway corridor, seeking a small amount of funding to help advance that project. And I just want to elaborate a little bit. You'll recall that we did a great deal of work under the Metro Transportation ballot measure to try to get funding for Sunrise, and that measure failed at the November ballot. So we are pivoting a bit and looking at how can we keep the momentum going on that project, and we feel that we have a strong case to be made with getting a small amount of funding from the legislature to do some vision planning out there, given all of the housing opportunities, the job opportunities, as well as the transportation mobility issues in the Sunrise area. And then lastly, we have a priority on the housing crisis and needing to address that one. Any questions before I move on to federal? On federal initiatives, again, I-205, and priorities, again, the COVID-19 pandemic, the Willamette Falls locks, federal forest lands and the sustainable management of those, reauthorization of the Secure Rural Schools Act, again, the Sunrise Gateway corridor. We have another item on here, the Mount Hood Recreation Access and Protection. This is a bill that Representative Blumenauer is working on, that we are coordinating with him on. It covers a range of topics. It touches on numerous departments, and we plan to come before you in the near future to talk more specifics about that. And lastly, the housing crisis once again.
Thank you, Chris.
Right, and then to our principles and legislative process. Good afternoon, Chair Smith and Commissioners. So you've read the principles in the packet. The context for why we have a principles-based agenda is just a few years old now. It really does give the county a lot more flexibility to touch on many topics. The legislature introduced over 1,800 bills this week, and they will probably introduce another 1,000 more. So this principles-based agenda gives us broader flexibility beyond our initial priorities that Chris just lined out. When it comes to the messaging that we have here at the county, as Sue mentioned, we have a very coordinated effort within our county departments here, and then we touch base with you on a weekly measure through emails and other forms of communication. But for items that are not on our county legislative agenda, we do make a point of coming to work with the Board of County Commissioners, perhaps at issues or at a policy session, to make sure that if the county is going to take a position, the Board of County Commissioners has a chance to weigh in. If we don't have a chance to meet with the board directly in a setting like this, we do what's called a special ops committee, which is a little bit more of a micro group. The county chair and county vice chair, along with Administrator Schmidt and a few other directors, are able to get together and make a quick decision, which then comes back to just be affirmed with the board. But the legislature does move fast, and so we have that process for that very reason. The there's good information in here about how we message and why we message in that way. Primarily, it's through very focused statements. And then for individual commissioners who are looking to make individual testimony outside of the county legislative agenda, we ask that you, as individual elected officials, you certainly have the right to do that. We ask that you please try to stick with or coordinate alongside the county agenda. If you're not able to do that, or if you're moving towards something that the county has not approved, then please just note that in your testimony or in your letters. Just say, you know, I'm acting on behalf of myself as an elected official. The county is not taking a position on this. It makes it really easy to delineate what is the county's position versus what's your role as an elected official. So I know we're doing this quickly, so that's the summarized version of it all.
Trent, thank you very much. I appreciate you gentlemen accommodating some needs that have arisen unexpectedly. Thank you very much. Gary?
All right, so we're seeking a vote to approve both the state and federal legislative agendas for Clackamas County. So seeking a motion, please.
Oh, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the legislative and federal agendas.
So move.
Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Martha has made a motion to approve the legislative agendas. Paul Savas has seconded that. Do I hear any other discussion? Without hearing, would you like to call the poll, please, Christine?
Yes. Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye, and the motion passes. Thank you very much for coming forward.
Well done, team. Good job. Good job. The staff did a fantastic job preparing so that this could be so seamless today. All right, there's one more session that we must do today, and staff cannot be here for 15 minutes. So either we can take a quick recess, or I've asked if Rich Swift can get here ASAP, but I haven't heard from him yet. So I'm sorry we have to wait 15 minutes, but we'll definitely be done by 3. So
Okay, let's wait 15 minutes and have staff assemble, and we can just all take a break and resume. Thank you.
we'll resume at 2:45 p.m. Thank you. Trudy, can you wave the gavel, please?
Thank you.
You betcha.
And we're back.
All right, is commissioners online?
They are.
All right, we're back at the policy session for Tuesday, January 12th, 2021. We're jumping ahead on the agenda. Next is what was listed at 3:45 p.m., the Jennings Lodge Camp Memorandum of Understanding, Intergovernmental Agreement. We have Laura Zentner, Director of Business and Community Services. Laura, if you please could give a 5-minute update, because we have to expedite our agenda today. Please
Okay,
go ahead.
I will do. Good afternoon, Chair Smith, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt. My name is Laura Zentner, Director of Business and Community Services. I'm here today to talk about the Jennings Lodge Camp Agreement and to request your approval for the county to sign onto an existing agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers, the Oregon State Historic Preservation Office, and the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. Let me give a little bit of background. In 2014, Lennar Development purchased a 16-acre piece of property in the Jennings Lodge area for development, and currently there's 72 single-family housing units now under construction. Prior to the development, the Jennings Lodge community filed several LUBA appeals and actions to stop removal of historic structures and trees on the site. Sorry, this mask is hard to talk. The community was ultimately unsuccessful, but did receive an agreement for Lennar to pay $185,000 for historical preservation related to the site. And then in 2018, an agreement, which we call the MOA, between the Army Corps, the Oregon State Historic Preservation Office, and the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation was signed and specified how the funds were to be managed. Clackamas County was not a party to this original agreement, but later was asked to act as the manager of the $185,000. Former County Administrator Don Krupp agreed that the county would act as the fund manager and asked Business and Community Services to manage the grant process for distribution of the funds. So Clackamas County is named in the agreement
along with Restore Oregon as a potential fund manager. Since the county was not a party to the original agreement, and County Council recommended that the county not become a party to the original agreement, County Council then worked on an IGA with SHPO and the Army Corps of Engineers that would allow the county to manage the money. And this IGA added additional required terms for the fund management work to be done in compliance with county finance policy. At the same time, BCS worked on a grant application and criteria that could be used to distribute the funds. The Army Corps of Engineers declined to sign the IGA and allow the county to manage the funds. Then on December 17th, the Army Corps notified the county that if the county would not sign the agreement, the Army Corps would intend to work with Restore Oregon, the other organization that was listed in the agreement. And so the Army Corps gave the county 30 days to respond before they reach out to Restore Oregon, and that deadline is January 18th. So we have three options before us today. One is to agree to manage the money without an agreement, and that's not recommended. The second would be to sign the MOA and manage the funds consistent with the agreement, although that we do lack some guidelines for SHPO and the Army Corps to provide the oversight of our plan management. And the final would be to tell the Army Corps to allow another entity to manage. So the staff recommendation is option 2, and that would be that the county sign on to the existing agreement and that we manage, BCS manage, the distribution of those funds per the agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, do we have any questions for Laura Zentner?
I do.
A comment, Chair, that is that I think because of part of the video cutting in and out, the video audio cutting out, I think I got most of what you said, Laura. So if I'm not mistaken, I'm inclined to make a motion to support option 2.
Do I hear a second?
Second it.
Commissioner Savas has made a motion to accept option 2 on this agreement and MOU. Commissioner Scholl has seconded the motion. Do I hear any more discussion? Christine, please call the poll.
Okay, Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye, and the motion passes. Thank you very much, Laura Zentner. I appreciate your brevity today in light of what we're trying to accomplish. Gary?
Bravo. One final thing. So for the rest of the agenda, the Milwaukee Bay Park project, we're going to just bump to next Tuesday, just 1 week, which is, we can still do that timely. I'm going to recommend we pass on Commissioner communications for today. You'll have Thursday's business meeting to do that. One last item, which is the 245 session, approval of home loan with Green Line Affordable Development. Pamela Anderson is on Zoom, and Andrew Naylor, who is the county counsel assigned to this work. There is a timeline of this week to move forward or not. So I am asking your permission to have a 5-minute update to decide if this goes back to a business meeting or not. This was a promissory note from our Community Development Division for a housing project related to the Metro Housing Bond funds we received. I just gave the update. But if Pam wants to come online, or Andrew, 5 minutes, go.
Good morning, Commissioners. Andrew Naylor, County Counsel. I was going to say, I think it'd be good for Pamela Anderson, if she's available, to just do a
She's no longer online.
All right, sorry. Andrew,
Okay.
go for it, please.
Apologies, Commissioners. So Gary gave the update of what the program is. These are federal funds that the Community Development Division distributes out for affordable housing projects. This is for the Fuller Station project. It's a $950,000 loan to Green Line Investments partnership for the construction of, I believe it's a 100-unit apartment complex. I apologize if I don't have all the project-specific details. But that is the general transaction that the department is seeking to have approved this Thursday. And I understand there were questions and concerns about it, so I'm happy to answer to the extent I can.
So if I may, these are not general fund dollars. They are the federal housing dollars that come to Clackamas County. We are giving a loan to this developer, is that correct?
That's correct.
And then the developer will pay us back over a period of time. This is a collaborative project with, it's one of the 3 projects the county is funding with the Metro Housing Bond funds that we have received. So this is just a secondary source of funding from the county, in addition to the Housing Authority money, that is the bond money from Metro. So it is just a loan transaction. But there was some paperwork that was added late, which is why this got the attention of the board in the first place. So that's a note to staff, is do the homework right the first time. It was inadvertent. But so that we're seeking your approval to put it on a consent agenda. You don't have to decide today, but simply do you want to move forward or not?
I have a question regarding the promissory note to the builder. How are those funds dispersed? You know, a certain amount goes out as performance is accomplished. Is that how it's based? You're just not going to give this builder $950,000?
That's correct. They are limited to certain eligible costs, certain eligible things, expenses that they can incur, and they will receive the funds to pay for those eligible expenses. The department has to verify that the funds are being used correctly and that what they're requesting is appropriate.
And the builder invoices the department ahead of time before, I suppose, materials, supplies, and labor is hired? Is that how it works?
I don't know the details of that mechanic. That's typically something handled from the department.
This is one of the reasons why I yanked it, because we are signing off on a $950,000 promissory note, and I want to know what the heck it is. But obviously, we're under a deadline, and I don't appreciate that. So as the new chair, am I supposed to go on faith that everything is going to be okay and none of my questions are going to be answered, Mr. Schmidt?
No, we will always answer questions of you and the board. And I ask a level of trust that staff would not bring something forward unless it's been fully vetted first by them.
Now, this needs to be done by today and Thursday, correct?
By the end of this week, so Thursday would be the time to make the formal decision. I'm just asking if you'd like to put it on your Thursday agenda.
Yes, let's do that. And note my a little bit of discuss on how this is being handled.
Yep.
And if there's any deadlines that are missed, any I's that are not dotted, any T's are not crossed, staff all across Clackamas County needs to know this is the last time that I do this.
In Chair, I personally just don't have those answers, and I apologize for that.
Andrew, I'm not speaking to you.
Okay, well, I fully expect the department will have them, and I will work to make sure they get you the answers to those questions about how the
I
funds will be
think this work
dispersed.
is sloppy, knowing that a new board has come in. Staff has known for months that a new board was coming in, and they should have taken the due diligence to make sure that we were up to speed. Mr. Schmidt.
Yes, so let's put it, if you agree, Chair, let's make it a board discussion item for Thursday, so the board can discuss it, and staff will answer your questions in particular, Chair, prior to Thursday.
All right.
And Commissioner Savas has his hand up.
Mr. Savas.
Yeah, thank you. So just to clarify, and again, partly because the audio is breaking up and I'm just catching this in the bites. I believe I heard Gary, just correct me if I'm wrong. This is not general fund money, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then the promissory note basically is money from the housing authority, or the housing authority is the holder of the money. Who holds the money? I know where it's going, it sounds like, but who holds the money?
Commissioner Savas, Andrew Naylor here. It is held by the county, not the housing authority. The housing authority has a separate piece of this larger project. This is just the single piece the county is involved in through its community development. So it'll be the county responsible for these funds and distributing these funds.
Okay, the county housing authority.
No, the county separate from the housing authority.
Okay, all right. On behalf of the housing authority.
On behalf of the county itself. The housing authority has a piece of this, but it's entirely separate from this.
All right. I know these things are extremely complex, and I don't pretend to understand them. So I appreciate you answering my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, it will be a board discussion item for this Thursday. We'll put it on the agenda, and you can, commissioners, approve it or not at that meeting. Thank you very much. That is the end of the agenda for today, Chair.
Yes,
We're done for today.
we're done for today. We're adjourned.